Whose side are you on? Who do you hold in your mind's eye when you're making decisions? Now, everything I have fought for has been shaped by my life. Every change I've made to this party has been about a cause. The answer to that question, the only answer, the working people of this country delivering on their aspirations, earning their respect, serving their interests. I have changed this Labour Party, dragged it back to service, and I will do exactly the same for Westminster. That is the choice at this election: service or self-interest, stability or chaos, a Labour Party that has changed or a Tory party that has run away from the mainstream. The choice is yours. You can stop the chaos, you can turn the page, you can join with us, and together we can rebuild our country.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer wrapped up that speech just moments ago, as you'll know from watching it. And Beth Rigby was there and joins us now, our political editor. Beth, I thought it was a really interesting speech that struck a number of different tones. There was a personal introduction and then getting more firmly into the policy as it went on, particularly during the Q&A. What was your take?
There were two elements of this speech. The first is that I think there's an admission within the Labour Party. In fact, Keir Starmer said it himself, that whatever the polls are suggesting, he understands he has not sealed the deal with voters, that many voters might be unhappy about the Conservatives, but they are also in general disillusioned with politics. There's a breakdown, if you like, between politics and politicians and voters when it comes to trust, and they're turned off. So I think part of this speech was Keir Starmer trying to impart onto people, like, this is who I am as a person, this is my background, this is where I came from. There's no coincidence that we are here in Lancing, near where he grew up. He talked a lot about his family and growing up in the southeast, about being from a working class background, about understanding the pressures of cost of living. So it was a personal speech, if you like, to try and cut through to voters and try and make that connection. We talk a lot about the kind of Blair mania of 1997. It doesn't quite feel like that for Starmer. So that was point one. And then point two, going on from that, was him trying to set his political priorities around those values. So he talked about putting the country before party, being in the service of people. He talked about his first steps of policies around stability for the economy, keeping borders safe, which he said was, a primary criteria for any Prime Minister. So there were two elements of the speech. And then in terms of policy, I thought one of the couple very interesting things he said. In terms of the national service, I put it to him that actually that plan is quite popular, some form of national service with voters. He said that it was desperate, that the Tories were, to quote him, rummaging round in the toy box, trying to pluck something out of thin air. He said it wasn't workable, it wasn't thought through. But interestingly, he didn't completely say he disagreed with the principle of it. The other thing that really stuck out for me there, again going back to his personal values in terms of policy, was when he was asked about charging VAT on private school fees in order to fund 6,500 teachers in state schools. Now, that is one of the key pledges going into the general election campaign. He sends his two children to state schools. I asked him once, would you ever consider a private school? He said, without a beat, absolutely no. He said, it is intolerable to me, those were his words, that kids at state schools didn't have the teachers they needed. And he said it was a difficult choice to make when it came to charging VAT on private schools. He said he understood parents worked hard to send those kids to schools, but he said this is part about leadership. And I think in all of this, what you're beginning to see now from the Starmer campaign is trying to find a connection with a politician. I would say, it's fair to say, has found it in the past quite difficult to emote and connect with voters. So you can see now, as the campaign builds up that this is going to be a massive priority for the party. They know that the change message is potent, and now they need to try and seal the deal with voters and get them to pick Starmer rather than other parties or protest votes.
It's really interesting, Beth, because in the last couple of days we've seen some coverage to suggest that both candidates are making this campaign pseudo-presidential about them as much as it is their parties. Is that your take from what we saw today, or is there still quite a nuance and a balance and an element of Labour and Starmer knowing that or thinking that they can play things a bit safer given their poll lead and balance this out? Or do you think they are making it today about Starmer, the Prime Minister in waiting, as opposed to Labour?
I think on the Labour side, what you actually have is a team that really coalesces around three main faces in this campaign. You saw one of them out yesterday taken to the airways on the BBC sofa. That was Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor. You will also see a lot of Angela Rayner, the Deputy Labour leader. And I think really it's that trio that you will see, pretty much one of them out every day on the campaign trail. I think it is true to say that on the Conservative side, it has become a very presidential campaign, with Sunak really the point person for this campaign. And I have to say, it's not necessarily popular with some of the parties, that members of the party. There was a leaked email that Johnny Marshall was writing on a train, actually, and I think someone photographed it, about him complaining about this, saying that they should be showing more of the cabinet and more of the top team. This was actually before the election was called, but you can see that within the Conservative Party at the moment, it's all about Rishi Sunak. It's because in the past, Rishi Sunak outpolled the Conservative Party brand. I'm not sure if that is still the case, and it's also because I'm not sure how many in his cabinet are entirely delighted that he called this election campaign when he did, but it's certainly going to be a presidential campaign on behalf of the Conservative Party. But really, this has been the tenor and tone of the past few election campaigns here, be it Boris Johnson in 2019 or Theresa May in 2017, although that did backfire on them. In this telegenic age, it's very much about the principle. And for Keir Starmer, certainly, I think this is about him trying to personally connect with voters.
Beth, just finally, I was also interested in what you made as some of his opening remarks, talking about the countryside so much, saying at one point it's the best of British in many ways, and whether there's anything for us to draw from that. Is it a sense that he's very confident about winning most of the inner city votes, or a sign of some of those constituencies where he feels he can steal wins that they haven't had for many decades, perhaps?
I don't really think it's either of those things, to be honest. I think what it was about him trying to get across to the voter that he isn't, to quote the Conservatives, a North London lefty, posh guy. That's sometimes the attack lines, a North London liberal elite. You heard those attack lines again and again from the Conservatives. What he was talking about when he talked about the countryside and growing up in the southeast was trying to convey where he came from, because I think for Keir Starmer, a lot of his politics is quite personal and goes back to the experience he had growing up. His father was a toolmaker. He's talked publicly about how his father felt disrespected because he didn't have a university degree. He's trying to impart to the voter that he understands when they talk about concerns about cost of living. Because he himself, as a child, you heard him say again in this speech, had the phone cut off. He's trying to say, look, I might look like a privileged guy. I'm a sir. I was a leading QC. I ran the Crown Prosecution Service, but my roots are quite similar to where you, the ordinary voter, came from. And I think that's why he talked about the countryside. He's trying to ground his identity and his campaign from where he came from, to explain better to the voter what he wants to do should he be Prime Minister. So I don't think he's necessarily here because these are battlegrounds, although Labour desperately do want to and need to win some of the seats. seats in the south in these red wall battlegrounds. It was much more about today having a launch speech. This was the first big speech of the campaign that really grounded him in his ontology, if you like, in where he came from and how that explains who he is as a person.
Beth, stick with us because we're just going to watch back now your question to Sir Keir Starmer that related to national service for 18-year-olds.
Some form of national service is actually quite popular with voters. Would you support a version of the Prime Minister's plan? And I'm a mother of a teenage boy. You're the father of a teenager. Do you think your son and his friends would be enthusiastic about signing up? Thank you.
But I do accept the proposition that we need strong defences, and that has to be the first duty of any government. But I think this plan is desperate. I think they are rummaging around in the toy box to try and find any plan that they can throw on the table. I don't think it'll work. You've seen what military experts, those with experience, have said about it.
Beth, I thought it was an excellent question, which allowed you to get to the issue without allowing him necessarily to give his most pre-planned answer on the topic. It wasn't a bad answer either, and you mentioned also his answer and response on the question of VAT on private school fees. There were some other good answers. He clearly had to think on his feet to deliver as well. What do you give his overall performance today?
Well, I think in terms of the answer to that question, what was interesting about that was he didn't completely poo-poo the idea of some form of national service. And, well, he might not, because actually when you look at polling, people do quite like this policy, the idea of some form of national service. Of course, there are questions about making it mandatory. What was interesting, though, in the way he answered it, was the way he talked about priorities. So the way he ended up answering that was in framing. So the Prime Minister wants to talk about defence, national security, to try and make the argument that country is safer under a Rishi Sunak government. And what Starmer did with the answer there was he didn't poo-poo the idea, but rather he said, look, this is an ill-thought-through plan. The Conservatives are taking money from two other pots that he thinks are more important. One is they're going to fund it partly through taxing non-DOMs more. Labour are doing the same policy of taxation, but Starmer is spending that on the NHS. And the Conservatives are also going to use money taken out of the Levelling Up Fund to fund the national service. Starmer said in his answer to me that they are taking money from Levelling Up and NHS, which he argues that cost of living in NHS are priorities for voters and therefore his priorities. So he didn't completely do the plan down, but he rather tried to twist it to put himself on the side, if you like, of ordinary voters, which is the sort of language I think you're going to hear again and again and again in this campaign.